Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
We go back 89 years for an episode of the West Coast Police Procedural, or as it was called at the time, a cop show, Calling All Cars and the Case of the Cut Rate Murder. And we thank you for tuning in on this Saturday. This is the 11th day of February, 42nd day of the year, 323 days remaining until we get to 2024. The first hospital in the U.S. opened on this date in 1752, Pennsylvania Hospital. In 1790, the Religious Society of Friends, also known as the Quakers, petitioned Congress for the abolition of slavery. The first session of the Senate opened to the public on this date in 1794. In 1808, anthracite coal first burned as fuel experimentally. In 1809, Robert Fulton patented the steamboat. Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry gerrymandered for the first time on this date in 1812. In 1861, the House unanimously passed a resolution guaranteeing non-interference with slavery in any state. In 1937, a sit-down strike ended when General Motors recognized the United Auto Workers Union. In 1939, the Lockheed P-38 flew from California to New York in 7 hours and 2 minutes. The first gold record presented to Glenn Miller on this date in 1941. It was for "Pardon Me, Boys, Is That the Chattanooga Choo-Choo?" In 1943, General Dwight Eisenhower selected to command the Allied armies in Europe. It would be 10 years later on this date when President Eisenhower refused clemency appeals for Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, accused of being atomic spies. In 1953, the Soviet Union broke off diplomatic relations with Israel. And it was on this date in 1963, Beatle Ringo Starr married Maureen Cox, no relation in London. Starr described the bedlam outside his apartment after the wedding at what he had hoped for his honeymoon.
The house is surrounded by teenagers at the moment. You just can't get out.
Yeah, well, we didn't think it would be, you see. We expected, because the wedding went so smoothly, you know, and we quietly, and we'd get down here and sort of have a honeymoon and sort of, you know, have a good time, but everyone's found out, so that's finished.
Ringo Starr and Maureen Cox would divorce in 1975 after 10 years. Israeli-Jordanian border clashes began on this date in 1968. In 1973, the first release of American prisoners of war from Vietnam. Just prior to his sentencing on this date in 1988, Jason Landone made a public apology for his role in the Howard Beach incident.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Griffith, for your senseless loss. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, that your lives and hopes have been so violently turned around.
Landone sentenced to 5 to 15 years in jail, one of a group of white teenagers who on December 20th of 1986 assaulted 3 African-American men. Space Shuttle Discovery launched on this date in 1997 on a mission to service the Hubble Space Telescope. In 2006, Vice President Dick Cheney accidentally shot Harry Whittington in the face while the two were hunting together. Now, at a White House briefing, spokesman Scott McClellan barraged by reporters' questions about the hunting accident in which Vice President Cheney wounded that companion. Most wanted to know how this could happen on a Saturday, yet word of it not leak out until the next day. McClellan repeatedly asked when the president learned of the accident and if the VP personally spoke to him. Here's one exchange.
When did the president know that the vice president was the shooter? What time?
Again, there's additional information coming in that night, and the details continue to come in throughout the morning into the Sunday morning time period.
The vice president did not call the president to tell him he was the shooter?
Suzanne, go ahead.
And the press hasn't gotten any better. Unless it has to do with, well, I'm not going to get that political. And on this date in 2017, North Korea fired a ballistic missile across the Sea of Japan in a test. Passing away on this date in history, philosopher René Descartes, actor Lee J. Cobb, actress-dancer Eleanor Powell, businessman balloonist Ben Abruzzo, also race car driver Neil Bonnet, actor William Conrad, actor Don Porter, director Roger Vadim, also Peter Benchley, fine author, Whitney Houston passing away on this date, as did singer Vic Damone. This is the birth date of Thomas Alva Edison.
When I look around at the resources of the electrical field today, I feel that I would be glad to begin again my work as an electrician, an inventor, and we veterans can only urge upon our successors, the younger followers of Franklin and of Kelvin, to realize the measure of their opportunities and to rise to the height of their responsibilities in this day of electricity.
A speech Edison made at the 1908 electrical show. Thomas Alva Edison, born on this date, as was boxer actor Max Baer Sr., also director Joseph L. Mankiewicz, author Sidney Shelton, Eva Gabor Darling, Leslie Nielsen, who was heavy in movies until they found out how well he could do deadpan comedy. He was great. Leslie Nielsen, born on this date. Panamanian General Manuel Noriega, also musician Gene Vincent, actor Burt Reynolds, Bobby Boris Pickett. He did the Monster Mash. Lyricist Jerry Goffin, all born on this date in history. The last surviving member of Gilligan's Island, Tina Louise, 89 today. Brazilian musician Sergio Mendes, 82, is doing such wonderful music. He's still working today. From One Life to Live, Catherine Hickland, 67. Sheryl Crow, all she wants to do is have some fun. She's 61. Ken Shamrock, who everybody wants to make sure he was a martial artist. Yeah, he was, but he also was quite the pro wrestler. 59 years old today. In fact, I believe he worked for Impact Wrestling within the last 2 years. Don't get me to lying here. Politician Sarah Palin, 59. From Friends, Jennifer Aniston, 54. From Lincoln Park, Mike Shinoda is 46. Brandy, fine singer, 44. From Boy Meets World, Matthew Lawrence is 43. Destiny's Child's Kelly Rowland is 42. From Game of Thrones, Natalie Dormer is 41. And from Twilight, Taylor Lautner is 31. Those some of the people celebrating the 11th day of February as their birthday. And if this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say... Happy birthday to you!
And from 89 years ago today, February 11th, 1934, calling all cars in the case of the cut rate murder. That's coming up next on this Saturday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite radio station. The West Coast program Calling All Cars was sponsored by Rio Grande Gasoline. The reason it was a West Coast program? Rio Grande was only available on the west coast of the United States. So, why should they sell it anywhere else, So that's what we're going to hear right now, an episode of Calling All Cars, a very early show, one of the earliest shows we've done. I think we have some 1932 shows of The Family Doctor, of that short-run series, but this show goes back 89 years to February 11th, 1934, and the case of the cut rate murder.
Calling All Cars, a copyrighted program transcribed and dedicated to the prevention of crime.
Calling all cars, attention all cars, broadcast 20 regarding murder of a woman on 99th Street. Suspects unknown. That is all. Gordon.
modern law enforcement officer who is ambitious to successfully protect the public from the marauders who prey on it must be a student of the laws of evidence. This subject treats of that type of proof, which is admissible by the court in a trial with or without a jury. In other words, the investigating officer must not only discover the proof of the crime, but must establish it by legal evidence so logically presented and marshaled that the links forming the chain of proof cannot be broken by attack launched against it by the lawyer for the defense. This is not easy and doubles the work of the investigating officer, but he has more often than not shown that it can be done. In proof of this, study the number of convictions obtained, convictions of which the public knows or hears nothing, because they do not achieve the publicity of more lurid crimes. The difficulties the law enforcement officer meets are myriad. No two cases are alike. The criminal is sometimes clever, especially where he deliberately causes a break in a chain of evidence. Even that does not faze the modern scientific police officer, for he finds the missing link, completes the chain, and the criminal is on the road to his punishment. Listen then to the authentic case from police records, the case of the cut-rate murder.
What was that noise? Oh, baby, darling, come here to Auntie. What's the matter, child? There, now. Well, what's this on your nightie? It's wet and sticky. Oh, where are the lights? There, now, let's see. Good Lord. Blood. Merle, are you all right? Oh, Merle. Oh, sister. Sister, speak to me. Speak to me. Herman, get up. Get up, for God's sake.
What's the matter, Florence? What's wrong?
Herman, Merle's dead.
Dead? Oh, you're crazy, Florence.
No, Herman. Look, she's been murdered. Shot through the neck.
Mr. Cannon frantically calls for the police. Shortly after the discovery of the body, Inspector of Detectives Davidson arrives at the scene of the crime.
Hello, Inspector.
Hello, Hickey. What's up?
In here, Inspector. Nothing's been touched.
Well, buckshot wound, huh?
Yes, sir. Fired point blank, apparently.
Yeah, looks that way. Well, here's the gun that did the work. Double-barreled sawed-off shotgun. One barrel exploded.
Cool guy, whoever he was. Leaving the gun, huh?
Yeah. Must be pretty sure he didn't leave any prints on it. However, take it in, Hickey, and have it examined for prints.
Okay.
Get the photographer out here to take some pictures of the scene.
Yes, sir.
Who else was in the house at the time of the shooting?
The sister and brother-in-law of the murdered woman.
Where are they now?
In the next room.
Good. I want to talk to them. Good morning. I'm Inspector Davidson.
Cannon's my name, Inspector, and this is my wife.
How do you do?
Oh, it's horrible. My poor sister. Oh, poor little Merle.
Mrs. Cannon, have you any idea who might have killed your sister?
Find Emery, her husband. He's the only enemy Merle had.
Emery? Is that his last name?
No, his full name is Emery Elves.
Where can we find him?
Well, I'll go with you, Inspector, and show you where he lives.
Emery Ells, his brother Alfred, and a friend of theirs named Ralph Moulton, found by the officers at Ells' house, are taken into custody. Brought into headquarters, Emery Ells is questioned first. How old are you, Ells?
26.
What do you do?
I'm a waiter.
Where?
At Hancock's all-night restaurant.
Tell us exactly what you did yesterday, from the time you got up until you went to bed. Speak slowly so the stenographer can take it down.
That's easy. My day begins at 6 o'clock in the evening, when I report for work at the restaurant. Yesterday, I got up late in the afternoon. I stopped by my mother's house for a few minutes, then I went to the restaurant. I wasn't out of the place until 6 o'clock this morning when I went home.
Can you prove that?
Sure I can. All you gotta do is ask Harry Hancock. He's my boss. You'll find him at the restaurant.
From all indications, your wife was killed sometime after midnight. You sure you didn't leave the cafe at any time during the night?
Well, as sure as I'm sitting here. Besides, why would I want to kill my wife? And she's not my wife anyway. We're divorced.
I understand you've threatened her life on several occasions.
That sounds like Herman Cannon talking. Well, it ain't so. Oh, sure, we had our share of arguments like anybody else, but that's all. You got the wrong guy if you think I killed her. I can prove where I was all day yesterday and all night. Now, what more do you want?
The truth. You had a possible motive for wanting her out of the way. True, isn't it, that you kidnapped the baby after the courts gave her custody of it?
He got sick, and I brought him back to his mother. You guys are all wet on that score. I get to see the baby whenever I want to. You're barking up the wrong tree. I didn't have any motive for wanting Merle bumped off.
All right, that's enough for now. Now, take him out that door, Sergeant. And bring in his brother.
Yes, sir.
Well, we'll have to investigate that alibi of his.
Right.
He certainly is cool about the whole business.
Yeah, so's his brother. Did you hear that crack when we pinched him?
No. What was it?
He asked me if he found the gun, and I told him it was being examined for fingerprints. He laughed and said, well, that'll tell you who the murderer is.
Yeah, they're both a little too cocky to suit me. Oh, sit down, Els. Now tell us, where were you last night?
Making my rounds.
How do you mean, making your rounds?
I'm a deputy constable out in Haywood, and I spent the night patrolling my district.
Who do you think killed your sister-in-law?
How should I know?
Why did you laugh this morning when I told you the shotgun was being examined for fingerprints?
Did I laugh? I don't remember laughing.
Well, no fingerprints were found on the gun. Is it possible you knew the murderer wore gloves?
I don't know anything about it.
Take him back to his cell, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Call in Moulton, Hickey.
Yes, sir. All right, Eddie. Bring in Moulton.
Hello, Moulton.
Oh.
Sit down.
No, thanks. I'd rather stand.
Well, what's the matter? You're shaking like a leaf.
I'm darned if I know. This thing's got my goat.
You've been living with the Els boys, haven't you?
Yes.
How come?
Well, I've been out of work. So let me stay in the garage and eat with them in return for doing some odd jobs around the place.
Where were you yesterday and last night?
I rode around with Alfred in his car before he went to work. I bought some groceries and then went back to the house. I didn't leave again all evening.
Did anything unusual happen during the evening?
No. I sat up with Donald, Al's kid brother, till about 1 o'clock listening to some hillbillies on the radio.
Did anyone else come in?
No, not a soul.
What do you know about this murder?
Nothing. Honest to God, Inspector. I don't see what you're holding me for. I've got nothing to do with it at all.
How about Emery Els? Did you ever hear him say he wished Merle was dead?
No. No, I never heard him say anything like that. I don't know anything about it at all.
Okay, Moulton.
Can I go now?
Well, we'll have to hold you a little longer.
It won't do you any good. I don't know anything about it.
All right. Take him back, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
He's holding something back.
Yeah, and he hasn't the guts to hold it back long. Either he did the job, or he knows who did.
He'll crack before long. All he needs is a little time. Opinions at detective headquarters vary on the identity of the killer. Some feel that Emery Els' ironclad alibi, substantiated by testimony of his employer, still can be broken, and Emery proven to be the slayer. Others feel that Alfred had had ample opportunity during the night to commit the crime, although a motive for Alfred seems to be lacking. In contrast to the cool self-assuredness of the Els brothers, Moulton's nervousness and protestations of innocence lead other officers to consider him the killer. Then scores of witnesses are questioned, and from their testimony is revealed...
See, now listen, your cigar store's been a hangout for the fellas in this neighborhood. You've got to know something about it. You must have heard something.
I don't want to get in trouble with any of my customers. All the fellas around here do a lot of talking, but I don't listen.
Come on, tell us what you heard. We know Emery's been drinking here a lot, and you must have heard something.
Sure, both Emery and his brother come here often. I once heard Emery say to Alfred, he says, I'm sick of her, and I'm good and sore. She took the baby away from me. It's my baby as much as hers. I'll get square with her yet.
Hey, buddy. You know the Yells brothers around here?
Sure I do. I deliver papers to their house every day.
Did you ever hear Emery talk about his wife?
Sure I did. One day I was in the house collecting my bill, and both of them were drunk. I overheard his brother say, "Why, you ain't got the nerve to do it." And then Emery says, "It ain't nerve, it's smartness. I'll get somebody to do the job for me."
February 11th, 1934, calling all cars on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 89 years ago today follows these important messages from your favorite station. Here's Mike Lindell talking about getting your best friend something special.
And Mike, you've done it again. You've brought us an amazing line of dog beds.
This has been a long time coming. It starts with the same patented fill for your dogs now as we do my pillow. I wanted everything covered in sizes from your largest dog to your smallest dog. You can throw them in the washer and dryer. The dogs love it. They asked, and here they are. This is why you get the dog bed. This is the main reason. The dogs love it.
And you've got that 10-year warranty, right?
I can do it because the dogs love it. They don't want to wreck their bed.
And you can get these MyPillow dog beds at a price lower than the big box stores, as low as $19.95. Call 1-800-928-4715, 1-800-928-4715, or go to mypillow.com/pet and use my promo code Wyatt. Treat your best friend to a MyPillow dog bed, mypillow.com/pet. Promo code Wyatt. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We're listening to an episode of the West Coast show Calling All Cars, as it was originally broadcast Sunday, February 11th, 1934. In the newspapers of that Sunday, 89 years ago, these were some of the headlines. William P. McCracken, whose arrest has been ordered by the United States Senate, offered to surrender, but the offer was refused by the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Chesley W. Journey. Sought since yesterday when he failed to appear before the bar of the Senate with 3 aviation company officials, all of whom have been cited for contempt in connection with the current airmail investigation. McCracken appeared suddenly at Journey's home and gave himself up. Journey declined to take the former government official, now an attorney for several large aviation companies, into custody on the grounds that he did not have the Senate's warrant for McCracken's arrest in his possession. The warrant, Journey said, was locked up in his office at the Senate and would not be available until Monday at noon. Meanwhile, Frank J. Horgan, McCracken's attorney, went to the home of Justice O'Donoghue, said his client had been placed under arrest, and obtained a writ of habeas corpus returnable Monday at 10 a.m. in the District of Columbia Supreme Court. Behind Journey's statement that he did not have the warrant and therefore could not take McCracken into custody was seen as a determination of the Senate to avoid possible legal complications from a contest in the courts over jurisdiction. The government mulling over the idea of matching its wholesale cancellation of airmail contracts with some similar action on the ocean mail contracts. Eldon C. Fay, writing for the Associated Press, said even while it was performing the organization of an Army mail flying unit to tide over until new air contracts could be let, administration and congressional leaders were quietly checking over the reports of the long inquiry into ocean mail subsidies. Officials were disinclined openly to discuss the merchant marine phase of the mail subsidy, but indicated definite attention was being given it. From St. Paul, Minnesota, the possibility that the same gang engineered both the Ham and Bremer kidnappings, which netted $300,000, was investigated by police. Automobile registration supplied a possible link between the two crimes, it was learned, with the disclosure that an unidentified man and woman had fled from an apartment in St. Paul the day after Edward Bremer's abduction, January 17th. A few days before, William Ham Jr., millionaire brewer, was seized for $100,000 ransom last June 15th. A suspected gang abandoned a house on Vernon Avenue, a good residential district in St. Paul. Their automobile was disposed of through a second-hand car dealer. Orders lending new invigoration to the drive for increased employment went forward from two key offices in the government's recovery organization. In an effort to add at least 3.5 million men to the payrolls of industries operating under codes, Hugh Johnson, recovery administrator, called a meeting of all code authorities for March 5th with the objective of a further reduction in present hours of labor. At the same time, Secretary Harold Ickes gave out instructions that the Public Works Administration should concentrate upon getting construction actually underway on projects which funds have been allotted. In an effort to absorb the 4 million employees of the Civil Works Administration by May 1 and put additional unemployed to work as well. Sounds like a story found in old books of life in colonial days. From Vineyard Haven, Massachusetts, Dr. R.R. Merchant walked half a mile over harbor ice to attend to Captain George W. Carter, sick aboard his icebound ship. Martha's Vineyard usually has a mild winter, and the harbor ice was the first since 1917. And those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Sunday, February 11th, 1934. On your radio on the West Coast, 89 years ago, calling all cars. And we'll hear the conclusion following these messages. You're listening to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station. We stay out west, but a lot of years earlier on Sunday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of Fort Laramie starring Raymond Burr from 67 years ago, February 12, 1956, The Woman at Horse Creek. A new widow named Mrs. Dennis remains all alone on the prairie, easy prey for Indians or soldiers. That's coming up on Sunday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, anytime at classicradio.stream. But now the conclusion of Calling All Cars, 89 years ago, February 11th, 1934, the case of the cut-rate murder.
Following this trenchant bit of information, the officers question another sister of the murdered woman.
Yes, Inspector. Merle's told me several times that she feared Emery would kill her.
Why, had he threatened her life?
Yes. Oh, that is, I've heard him tell her he'd get her sooner or later, and I've seen him strike her.
When was that?
Well, last summer, Merle and I were running a hot dog stand down at the beach. One night, Emery came down there and told her he wanted to take a walk with him so he could talk to her.
Yeah?
I heard him say, "Come on, so I won't have to hurt you."
Did she go?
Yes. And a little while later, she came running back crying, and she told me that he tried to push her over the palisade. Oh, she was awfully bruised from fighting him off. And then later in the evening, he came back and tried to drag her off in his car. Then we called the police, and they took him away.
Uh-huh. But why should Els want to kill his wife?
Oh, he wanted to get her out of the way because she knew too much about some of the jobs he'd pulled.
Jobs, eh? What kind of jobs do you mean?
Oh, why, just jobs.
You'd better tell us what you mean.
Listen, Lieutenant, I don't want to get into any trouble. Just leave it at that. I don't know any more about Emery, and I don't want to.
The next day, a blood-stained flashlight is found in Alfred L's automobile. He admits ownership of it, but is unable to account for the bloodstains. On the clothesline behind the L's house is found a pair of freshly laundered corduroy trousers, bearing dark stains that might be blood. Moulton admits that these are his, but claims that the stains are grease spots. That evening, another officer is added to the investigation, when Detective Philkus, completing a previous assignment, joins his brother officers in an attempt to unravel the mystery. He interviews the three suspects, and as the others had done, decides to concentrate on Moulton.
Now look here, Moulton. You've admitted those trousers are yours, and that brands you as the murderer because the stains on those trousers are blood.
No, you're crazy. I told you the grease. Just grease spots from the last time I worked on Alfred's car.
Moulton, you're lying.
I swear I'm not.
You know more about this case than you're telling.
No, I don't. Honestly, I don't. I don't know anything about it.
Listen, Moulton, you'd better come clean, because that's the only way you can save your neck.
I tell you, I've got nothing to confess.
Look here, Moulton. Blood is thicker than water. The L's boys will stick together. You may find yourself in a hot spot before you get through with this. The spots on those trousers are being analyzed right now, and we'll soon know whether you're telling the truth.
I had nothing to do with the murder.
But you know who did it.
No, I swear to God I don't.
Is that the truth?
Yes.
Well, at that, I'm glad to know you're not the man we're looking for. Here, have a cigarette.
Huh, thanks. Gee, I need one.
Here's a light.
Smoke tastes good.
Been out of work long, Moulton?
Yeah, about 6 months.
Yeah, it's pretty tough going these days.
Yeah, getting worse.
Oh, I don't know. Couldn't be much worse.
Well, there don't seem to be much hope in sight.
Well, there's no use being pessimistic about it. Things will come out all right.
Maybe, but I doubt it.
Moulton, who killed Merle Ellis?
I thought I don't know. Gee, don't scare a guy that way.
Sorry. What do you think, Moulton? Figure we lick the depression?
I don't see how. Nothing's happened so far. But what this country needs is a new administration. That'll fix things up.
New administration? You're crazy.
No, I ain't. I know what I'm talking about. Now with the change
Who
of
killed Merle Ellis?
Listen, Felkus, I've told you I don't know anything about
But
it.
you do, Moulton. Now stop holding out on me.
Well, maybe I do have my suspicions. But that wouldn't help you much.
Well, anything but help, Moulton. Now let's have it.
Well, Emery traveled with some pretty tough guys. You might look up some of them.
Well, who, for instance?
Now, listen, I don't want to put the finger on anyone.
You'd better talk, Moulton.
Gee, I don't even know the fellow's name.
Oh, yes, you do.
Well, I don't know his first name.
Well, what's his last name?
His name's Brown.
What's he look like?
Oh, he has sandy hair and a mustache.
Where does he live?
He hangs out at a coffee joint in Huntington Park.
Anything else?
That's all I know. And I'm through talking. I don't know anything else about it.
And Moulton refuses to talk anymore. Filkus reports the results of his interview to Inspector Davidson.
Well, do you suppose it's worth anything, Inspector?
It doesn't sound like much. Brown's a pretty common name.
Yeah, I know, but I'd kind of like to run it down.
I don't know how much good it'd do looking for a sandy-haired man with the name of Brown. Probably find plenty of them in Huntington Park.
You know, I'd like to take Moulton with me and check all the hotels and coffee joints. Moulton could identify him if there is such a guy.
You're taking a long chance. Moulton might make a run for it.
Well, why should he? I've treated him white. Why should he double-cross me?
Okay, if you want to accept the responsibility. You know what it means if your prisoner gets away from you.
Accepting the serious responsibility of escorting an unshackled prisoner, Filkus takes Moulton with him to Huntington Park. After hours of searching the restaurants and hotels of the suburban city with no success, they're climbing the stairway of a rooming house on Randolph Street.
Hey, what's the matter? Come on.
I'll wait downstairs for you.
Why?
I think that's the guy up there by the desk.
Oh.
I'll see you later.
Now, don't you run out on me.
I won't. I promise.
Okay, I want to get a look at him. I'm going to talk to the clerk. Say, is there a man named Brown living here?
Why, no. What's he look like?
Oh, he's a middle-aged man. His first name's Harry.
Nope. Nobody here by that name.
Okay, thanks.
Did you see him?
Guy by the desk? Yeah, I got a glimpse of him. He walked down the hall as I came up the stairs. Was it Brown?
I don't know whether it was or not. It looked something like him from the back, but I'm not sure.
But Moulton will say no more. Filkus takes him back to jail and that night calls on him again in his cell.
Now, listen here, Moulton. I'm sick and tired of this beating around the bush. Now, was that Brown or wasn't it?
Well, it looked a lot like him.
Was it him or wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Fine. That's what I've been waiting to hear.
Now, wait a minute. I'm not saying he did it. Maybe he's as innocent as I am.
Hey, what's this? You were pretty suspicious of him before. Now you're laying off. What's the big idea?
Well, all I know is that I overheard him and Emery talking one time. And this fellow Brown said he was a gunman. And that he knew how to handle a machine gun. And then later, Emery and I went down to the riverbed and tried out Emery's old 12-gauge shotgun. But mind you, I'm not saying that he did it, though.
Well, I know you're not, but we look into this guy Brown just the same.
A little past midnight, Filkus, accompanied by 2 Huntington Park patrolmen, returns to the rooming house on Randolph Street. They rouse the clerk.
Oh, what do you want?
I'm a police officer. What room is that guy and I saw up here this morning?
Why, he's over there, second door to the left.
Thanks.
You better be careful, though.
Huh?
Knock first and say that White says it's all right.
Oh, thanks. Come on, boys.
Who's there?
A friend of Whitey's. Let me in.
Just an hour until I get something on.
Okay, now, all right, boys, on your toes.
Okay.
Say, what? Stay where you are, Brown. You got a gun around here?
What? You mean a gun? No.
Get your clothes on. You're coming with us.
Say, what is this?
You're under arrest.
Under arrest? What for?
Suspicion of murder.
Unresisting, Brown accompanies the officers to headquarters. Questioned, he talks freely, but on the subject of the murder, he is convincingly ignorant and claims that he has met the Ells brothers only once. After 2 hours of questioning, the detectives are no farther ahead than when they started. Then once more, Philkus visits Moulton in his cell.
Hey, you awake, Moulton?
Yeah. Did you get Brown?
Yes, he's in the office now. Claims he only met the Ells boys once. Now listen, Ralph. I want you to do something for me. And I want you to tell me something, anything that'll tie him up with the Ells boys. Will you do that?
Give me a cigarette.
Here. Take the whole pack.
Thanks. Now, look. Remind him of the time he was over to the house and him and Emery were talking about holding up that theater in Huntington Park.
Thanks, old man. That's all I need.
Armed with this information, Philkus returns to Inspector Davidson's office. For 10 minutes, he listens to the fruitless questioning. Then he leans forward and faces Brown.
Now, you look me in the eyes, Brown. Now, have you told all the lies you can think of?
What are you...
Now, what about the time that you and Emery Ells were over at his house planning a theater holdup?
Why,
What about it? And what about the murder of Merle Ells?
All right. I did it. Give me a pencil now. I'll write a confession.
That isn't necessary, Brown. Just talk, and the stenographer will take it down.
Well, I killed Merle Ells. It was this way. I met Emery Ells one night in the saloon. He was drinking.
Hey, Brown, you ain't been working much these days, have you?
No, things ain't so good in my line. You know, you got to be careful when you're a little hot.
Well, are you open for a job?
Sure, anytime.
Well, I know of a guy that's had some trouble with his wife.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just where do I fit in?
You fit right into the job. This guy wants his wife bumped off.
Now, wait a minute. I ain't bumping off any women.
You'll be doing a favor to him and the kid.
Favor? How?
Well, you see, this dame's got an incurable disease. And the guy's afraid the kid'll get it. Well, you'd be doing a favor to the kid by bumping off his wife.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Hey, wait a minute. That's not your wife, is it?
Of course not. Nothing like that.
Ain't much chance of her fighting back when the job's been pulled. The ones I've got to be cared of are the cops. I've dodged them plenty times before. At least I got a chance.
Listen, fella, there's $2,000 in it for you.
$2,000? Say, I'd do anything for that just now. I ain't got a gun.
You're a fine gunman. No gun.
Well, I got to be careful. If the cops pick me up and find a gun on me, it's all over with.
I'll take care of that. I got a gun you can use. Say, you better take this flashlight, too.
All right.
Say, have you got a car?
Well, I'll take care of that. That's easy. Pick up one somewhere. Say, how about a little handout right now?
Well, I haven't got any money from this guy yet. Well, I got some change. That'll pay for the gas anyway.
Hey, that's chicken feed.
Now, don't worry. The money's as good as in your pocket right now.
Well, I did the job. But all I got was 22 dimes. He gave it to me just before the bump off. I was broke.
$2.20 for a human life. Hardly worth it, was it, Brown?
Well, he double-crossed me on the rest of the dough. Said it was behind a billboard on Firestone Boulevard, but it wasn't.
All right, Brown. Get back to the murder. Tell us about that.
Well, Emery gave me the gun and the flashlight. I stole a car and I went to the house on 99th Street. Parked it down the street a ways. And then I went up to the sleeping porch and looked in. There was the dame and the kid sleeping. Emery told me he'd kill me if I hurt the kid, so... Well, I'd have to make the woman sit up in bed or I'd hit the baby when I let her have it. I was plenty nervous. I flashed the light in her face and I said, Merle, wake up. She opened her eyes and said, sleepy like. What's the matter? Then I lost my nerve. I didn't have the guts to shoot her. I beat it back to the car and I drove off. After about a half hour, I came back, thinking I could go through with it, but I lost my nerve again. I rode around again for a while. Then something inside my head snapped. Things went red and yellow behind my eyes, so I knew this time that I'd do it. I went back to the house. I opened the door of the sleeping porch a little bit. I called her, and when she raised up, I let her have it right through the neck and never even touched the kid. And I dropped the gun. As Emery said, it had been washed in gasoline, and I'd used gloves, so I wasn't afraid of leaving fingerprints. Then I took it on a limb. Yeah, I never thought they'd suspicion me. You could have knocked me over with a feather when you guys walked in tonight.
The splendid work of the agents in the case you just heard resulted in 2 confessions. Els is serving the remainder of his life in prison. Brown, the actual killer, was hanged by his neck until dead, proving once more that crime does not pay. Calling all cars, attention all cars, cancellation broadcast 20. Suspects now in custody. That is all. Gordon.
From 89 years ago, February 11th, 1934, Calling All Cars here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Please thank this station and support their advertisers. It's their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around here on your favorite station. Don't forget, if you're looking for a nice gift for somebody, go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listeners special. You can save on anything on the website if you use the promo code Wyatt. And those Giza Dream sheets and the Roll and Go pillows are wonderful. If you know someone who's heading on vacation, get you a Roll and Go pillow for them. They'll enjoy it as they go on vacation. Also, the webpage is classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me, find our social media links, and you can buy me a copy to help us support this program and keep us rolling for years to come and acquire new collections. Have yourself a great Saturday and a great weekend. Tell all your friends this greatest radio shows of the 20th century and of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.